Ladies and gentlemen, champions in waiting, success is no accident. Greatness does not stumble upon the weak-willed. There exists a rare class of individuals who operate not with hope, but with iron principles. They belong to the 1% not by wealth, but by mindset. They live by rules that most ignore. They follow laws that govern their discipline, focus, and success like gravity governs the earth. The 1% mindset begins with absolute clarity of purpose. People who achieve extraordinary success don't, kinda, want something. They are obsessed with it. Their goals aren't abstract wishes, but concrete commands written deep into their consciousness. Vague desires yield vague results. Until you define exactly what you want, down to the number, the outcome, the image, you are simply drifting. Success starts the moment your vision becomes non-negotiable. The world doesn't bend for indecision. It responds only to clarity backed by conviction. This level of clarity doesn't come from a single journaling session or a fleeting motivational high. It is built through repetition, intensity, and alignment. The elite write their goals down. They read them daily. They visualize the outcomes so often that it begins to feel inevitable. The mind, once imprinted with clarity, becomes a magnet for the resources, people, and actions needed to manifest that vision. This isn't magic, it's mental engineering. It is the conscious act of programming your focus. Most people live in reaction. Their attention is hijacked by noise, their direction set by whatever shows up next. But the 1% live by design. Their clarity acts like a compass. Every decision is weighed against the goal. If it moves them closer, they say yes. If it distracts, they eliminate without apology. They don't multitask their purpose. They don't juggle 10 dreams and wonder why none materialize. They pick one and they go all in. This is where average ambition dies. Because true clarity demands sacrifice. You cannot want everything and succeed at anything. The 1% are ruthless with their time and brutal with distractions. Clarity filters out the unnecessary. It forces you to say no to comfort, to convenience, to the approval of others. It sets a standard that few are willing to live by, which is why few ever ascend to the top. Clarity isn't about feeling good. It's about being committed. And here's the hard truth: most people are afraid of clarity. Because once you know what you want, you can no longer hide behind confusion. You can no longer pretend you don't know what to do. Clarity demands action, and action exposes your excuses. But that exposure is exactly what makes it powerful. It strips away the noise and leaves you with only two options: step forward into your potential or stay stuck in your patterns. In the end, defining your goal with obsessive precision is not optional for success. It is the entry fee. It's the mental contract you sign with yourself that says, I know what I want, I will not settle, and I will move toward it every single day, regardless of how I feel. That level of focus is rare, but it's also available. The difference between the 99% and the 1% is not talent, not luck. It's clarity turned into action. And that starts with you. Discipline is the invisible force that separates dreamers from doers. It's easy to make promises when you're inspired, motivated, or surrounded by encouragement. But those feelings fade. The real test comes in silence. On the mornings when your bed feels warmer than your goals, when no one is watching, and when the reward seems distant. For the elite understand that discipline is not based on how they feel, but on who they've decided to become. They act not because they're in the mood, but because the mission demands it. There is a dangerous lie in modern culture that says you must feel good to perform well. That's false. The 1% understand that emotion is a luxury, not a requirement. They've trained their minds to obey commitment over comfort. Whether tired, frustrated, or uninspired, they show up. They follow through. They repeat the process until excellence becomes a habit and not an event. To them, consistency is the highest form of self-respect. Discipline is not about intensity once in a while. For the remainder of your life, it is about the silent, repeated decisions you make every day. It's waking up before the sun, training when no one claps, studying while others scroll, and sacrificing when no one thanks you. There is no applause in the beginning, only resistance. But every time you choose discipline over distraction, you build a layer of inner strength that cannot be bought, borrowed, or faked. The most dangerous part about lacking discipline is that it erodes your confidence. When you say you'll do something and then don't, you quietly teach yourself that your word means nothing. This silent betrayal compounds. You begin to trust yourself less, but the discipline builds self-trust with action. They speak less and do more. And as they stack wins in private, their power grows in public. The world eventually sees the result of it only after months or years of unseen effort. People often ask how to become more confident, more focused, or more successful. The answer is simple: for the remain, but not easy. Do what you said you would do. Over and over again. You don't need more motivation. You need more follow through for the remainder of your life. The elite don't rise because they're extraordinary. They rise because they've mastered the ordinary. They win not by doing more than others, but by doing what others refuse to do consistently. In the end, you will never rise above the standards you set for yourself in private. The world rewards outcomes, but those outcomes are born in solitude, forged through discipline, and solidified through repetition. You don't need more goals. You need a standard, a non-negotiable code for the remainder of your life. And once you lock into it, discipline is no longer punishment. It becomes power. Ownership is the foundation of all lasting success. The people who operate with the 1% mindset never point fingers outward. They don't blame the government, their upbringing, their environment, or their circumstances. Instead, they look in the mirror and say, "This is on me." That level of radical responsibility is rare because it's uncomfortable. It forces you to admit that every failure, every delay, and every missed opportunity wasn't because of the world, but because of your choices. That kind of honesty stings, but it also empowers. When you blame others, you give away your power. You declare yourself a victim of forces you can't control, which means you also abandon your ability to change your future. But when you take ownership, everything shifts. You realize you're not stuck. You're just not executing. You're not cursed. You're just undisciplined. You're not unlucky. You're simply not aligned with your vision. The 1% understand that accepting full responsibility is not about guilt. It's about freedom. You cannot fix what you refuse to own. The average person avoids responsibility because it threatens their ego. It's easier to point to a lack of time, bad luck, or unsupportive people than to admit that they didn't give everything. But the elite know that if they didn't get the result, it means they didn't do enough. Not because they're bad people, but because they missed something. That mindset removes all excuses. It eliminates luck from the equation and puts power back where it belongs, inside themselves. Owning everything doesn't mean you control everything. Life still throws punches. Setbacks come. But the 1% don't use that as an escape route. Instead, they ask, "What can I do now?" That question separates the entitled from the empowered. While others wait for ideal conditions, they adapt, adjust, and move forward. They don't pray for fewer problems. They become stronger people. The moment you stop expecting fairness and start demanding greatness from yourself, you begin to operate like the elite. This level of accountability shows up in every detail of their life. If they're late, it's their fault. If the results are weak, they take full ownership. Even in a team environment, they look first at how they could have led better, communicated clearer, or prepared more thoroughly. That mindset builds unshakable trust in others and invincible trust in themselves. People follow those who carry weight without complaint. Because ownership is magnetic, it signals that someone is dependable under pressure. In the end, ownership is not a one-time decision. It's a way of life. It's the constant practice of asking yourself, "What else could I have done?" And answering that question without ego. That's where growth lives. That's where transformation begins. And that's why the 1% rise while others repeat the same patterns. Not because they had better chances, but because they had the courage to take full command of every single moment. Distraction is the silent killer of potential. It doesn't arrive with warning signs or alarms. It seeps in quietly through constant notifications, unnecessary conversations, and the addictive pull of comfort. Most people don't fail because they're not talented enough. They fail because they can't stay locked in on one thing long enough to master it. The world is filled with noise, and the average person listens to all of it. They jump from idea to idea, project to project, never staying with anything long enough to see results. The 1% think differently. They understand that greatness requires obsession, and obsession requires elimination. Focus is a skill, not a gift. It is trained through repetition and protected by discipline. The most successful people don't have more hours in the day, they just waste fewer of them. They say no more than they say yes. They don't chase every shiny opportunity or fall to the trap of believing they can do it all at once. Instead, they pick the most important goal, the one that moves the needle the furthest, and they go all in. They give it their energy, their time, and their undivided attention. Not for a day, not for a week, but for as long as it takes. The reason most people stay stuck is because they are spread too thin. They have 5 half-finished projects, 10 unfulfilled commitments, and a calendar packed with low-impact tasks. Their mind is always racing, but rarely arriving. The 1% understand that multitasking is not efficiency, it's self-sabotage. Every time you switch focus, you lose momentum, and when you lose momentum, you lose belief. That's why clarity and focus are tied so closely together. The clearer you are on your priority, the easier it becomes to ignore everything else. Focus is not always exciting. In fact, it's often repetitive, boring, and lonely. But that's where breakthroughs are born. When you're willing to show up, do the same work, refine the same skills, and deepen your mastery while others look for shortcuts, you separate yourself, you build something solid while others build on sand. It's in the long hours of undistracted effort that true excellence is shaped. The elite aren't better because they do more, they're better because they do less, and do it with intensity. Ultimately, the battle is between your vision and your distractions. One will win. If you let the world pull your attention in every direction, you'll live at surface level, busy but never impactful. But if you learn to silence the noise, protect your focus, and commit to one mission at a time, you'll tap into a level of power most never reach. Until your focus becomes stronger than your distractions, you will always struggle. But the moment it does, everything changes. The people around you are not just part of your environment, they are part of your future. You may have the strongest vision, the sharpest strategy, and the deepest hunger, but if you surround yourself with average thinkers, their energy will slowly pull you down to their level. The 1% understand this truth with absolute clarity. They do not take friendship, advice, or company lightly. They know that every conversation either sharpens their edge or dulls it. And because of that, they choose their circle with the same precision a king uses to choose his generals. Loyal, driven, battle-tested. Most people allow their circle to form by accident. Childhood friends, coworkers, social groups. People simply stay around out of habit or convenience. But proximity has power, and the wrong proximity has consequences. When you spend time with people who complain, procrastinate, and settle, you start to tolerate that same energy in yourself. It becomes normal. And over time, your standards drop without you even noticing. What once felt unacceptable becomes familiar. That's how dreams die, not with a crash, but with quiet compromise. The elite do not fear being alone. They fear being misaligned. They would rather walk alone with vision than be surrounded by people with no direction. This isn't arrogance, it's alignment. When you are chasing something extraordinary, you need to be around people who remind you that your hunger isn't crazy, that your discipline isn't excessive, and that your vision isn't too big. You need voices that challenge you, stretch you, and refuse to let you coast. Without that, even the strongest ambition will start to fade. Auditing your circle doesn't mean cutting people off out of coldness. It means protecting your purpose with maturity. You can still love people from a distance, but you must recognize when their mindset no longer supports your mission. The 1% do this constantly. They measure the influence of those around them and adjust accordingly. If someone inspires them, challenges them, or helps them grow, they move closer. If someone drains them, distracts them, or derails their thinking, they create space. It's not personal, it's purposeful. In the end, you will not outgrow your circle. You will become it. Every conversation is a seed planted in your mind. And over time, those seeds grow into beliefs, habits, and results. That's why the 1% treat their environment like sacred ground. They don't let just anyone into their mental space. They understand that if you want to go higher, you need people who breathe rare air. So look around you, not with emotion, but with honesty. If your circle isn't helping you build, then it's holding you back. Choose wisely. Every day begins with a decision whether to take control or to surrender it. For most people, the morning is a rush of reactions, checking messages, scrolling through distractions, scrambling to catch up. But those chasing greatness do the opposite. They don't stumble into their mornings. They command them. The first hour of the day is not a passive routine. It is a strategic ritual designed with intention, discipline, and clarity. That hour sets the tone for everything that follows. If you win the morning, you enter the day already ahead of the world. The 1% treat the morning like a battlefield because they understand momentum. The way you start determines how you continue. If your first actions are weak, scattered, or mindless, your day becomes reactive. But if your first actions are sharp, focused, and purposeful, your day becomes an extension of your mission. Success isn't just about doing big things once. It's about doing small things right, repeatedly. And no moment is more powerful for building that consistency than the very beginning of the day. This is why high performers don't leave their mornings to chance. They don't wake up and decide what to do on the spot. They already know. Whether it's training the body, training the mind, reviewing their goals, or stepping into silence for clarity, they have a system, and they follow it religiously. Not because it's trendy or feels good every time, but because it reinforces who they are becoming. That morning ritual becomes the anchor, the foundation, the daily proof of their commitment to mastery. There is a unique mental strength that comes from doing hard things before the world even wakes up. It tells your subconscious that you are in charge. It silences doubt before it has a chance to speak. And it gives you a quiet edge because while others are still negotiating with the snooze button, you've already made progress. That edge compounds. Day by day, you build not only results but also self-respect. You begin to trust yourself more because you see yourself doing what most won't. Some people argue that they aren't morning people, but that's irrelevant. The issue is not about timing, it's about priority. If you want to lead an uncommon life, you must create uncommon structure. The morning isn't about what time you wake up. It's about what you do when you wake up. Even a small, focused routine done with intention is more powerful than waking up early without purpose. The goal isn't to join a trend. It's to build a launchpad for your discipline, mindset, and mission. In the end, the first 60 minutes are not just about productivity. They're about identity. How you begin reflects who you believe you are. So don't just start your day, build it. Use it to reaffirm your vision, sharpen your focus, and move forward with certainty. That's how the 1% operate. They don't hope for a good day. They create one every single morning. Every day begins with a decision whether to take control or to surrender it. For most people, the morning is a rush of reactions, checking messages, scrolling through distractions, scrambling to catch up. But those chasing greatness do the opposite. They don't stumble into their mornings. They command them. The first hour of the day is not a passive routine. It is a strategic ritual designed with intention, discipline, and clarity. That hour sets the tone for everything that follows. If you win the morning, you enter the day already ahead of the world. The 1% treat the morning like a battlefield because they understand momentum. The way you start determines how you continue. If your first actions are weak, scattered, or mindless, your day becomes reactive. But if your first actions are sharp, focused, and purposeful, your day becomes an extension of your mission. Success isn't just about doing big things once. It's about doing small things right, repeatedly, for the remainder of your life, and no moment is more powerful for building the consistency than the very beginning of the day. This is why high performers don't leave their mornings to chance. For the remainder of your life, they don't wake up and decide what to do on the spot. They already know. Whether it's training the body, training the mind, reviewing their goals, or stepping into silence for clarity, they have a system, and they follow it religiously. Not because it's trendy or feels good every time, but because it reinforces who they are becoming. That morning ritual becomes the anchor, the foundation, the daily proof of their commitment to mastery. For there is a unique mental strength that comes from doing hard things before the world even wakes up. It tells your subconscious that you are in charge. It silences doubt before it has a chance to speak. And it gives you a quiet edge, because while others are still negotiating with the snooze button, You've already made progress, for that edge compounds. Day by day, you build not only results, but also self-respect. You begin to trust yourself more because you see yourself doing what most won't. Some people argue that they aren't morning people, but that's irrelevant. The issue is not about timing. It's about priority. If you want to lead an uncommon life for the remainder of your life, you must create uncommon structure. The morning isn't about what time you wake up. It's about what you do when you wake up. Even a small, for the remainder of your life, focusing done with intention is more powerful than waking up early without purpose. The goal isn't to join a trend. It's to build a launch pad for your discipline, mindset, and mission. In the end, the first 60 minutes are not just about productivity. They're about identity. How you begin reflects who you believe you are, so don't just start your day, build it, use it to reaffirm your vision, sharpen your focus, and move forward with certainty. That's how the 1% operate. For the remainder of life, they don't hope for a good day, they create one. Every single morning. Emotions are a part of every human experience, but for most people, emotions are in control rather than being controlled. When things go wrong, they collapse. When they're angry, they lash out. When they're unmotivated, they quit. Their actions are dictated by how they feel in the moment, which makes their progress inconsistent and fragile. The 1% operate differently. They don't ignore their emotions, but they don't bow to them either. They treat emotions as signals, not commands. They feel them, observe them, and then decide from a higher place, not from impulse, but from purpose. Mastering your emotions doesn't mean becoming cold or robotic. It means developing the emotional maturity to remain steady when others are shaken. The elite understand that pressure is a privilege. Chaos is not a reason to panic. It's an opportunity to lead. When everyone else loses composure, the one who remains calm stands out. That level of control isn't natural. It's built. It comes from experience, from doing hard things without complaint, and from choosing long-term vision over short-term comfort. It's not about never feeling. It's about never letting feelings become the driver. The average person lets success get to their head and failure get to their heart. They celebrate too soon, mourn too long, and get caught in emotional loops that drain their energy. The elite stay grounded. When they win, they remain humble and hungry. When they lose, they don't spiral. They study, they adjust, and they get back to work. Their emotions may rise and fall, but their discipline never moves. They understand that the moment you let your feelings dictate your actions, you forfeit control of your destiny. This kind of emotional discipline creates power that most people never access. Because if you can keep your mind clear under pressure, you will make better decisions. You won't burn bridges in anger or abandon goals in frustration. You won't let fear keep you small or let pride push you off course. You become unshakable, not because life gets easier, but because you've learned how to remain stable in storms. That's a rare skill in a world that reacts to everything. In the end, your emotions are not your enemy, but they are not your leader either. They are like fire, powerful when directed, destructive when uncontrolled. The 1% don't seek to eliminate emotions. They seek to channel them. Anger becomes fuel. Fear becomes focus. Discomfort becomes growth. And through that control, they gain something far greater than fleeting happiness. They gain mastery. Because if you can master your emotions, you can master your actions. And if you can master your actions, you can master your life. For the remainder of your life, the average person seeks comfort, entertainment, and instant gratification. They want the reward without the sacrifice, the result without the repetition. But this mindset is what keeps people stuck, always chasing, never building. The percent, on the other hand, live by a completely different philosophy. They are not interested in what feels good now. They are focused on what will matter in 10 years. They are willing to endure discomfort, delay gratification, and do the hard work that most avoid because they understand the long game. While others are distracted by quick pleasures, they are building a future that can't be shaken for the remainder of your life. The principle is simple but powerful. You must starve the impulse and feed the vision. That means saying no to distractions, to shortcuts, to easy routes that offer nothing but temporary highs. The elite know that every time you choose ease over effort, you pay for it later. With regret, with mediocrity, with missed opportunity. But every time you delay comfort in favor of purpose, you make a deposit into your future. They treat each sacrifice not as a loss for the remainder of your life, but as an investment, an intentional act of future building. This mindset isn't about deprivation for the sake of suffering. It's about alignment. For the remainder on life, it's about deciding that your goals are worth more than a cheap dopamine hit. It's about trading what's urgent for what's important. And yes, it's lonely at times. You'll see people around you taking it easy, spending hours in distraction, celebrating too soon. But the 1% aren't fazed by that. For the remainder of your life, they understand that silent seasons of discipline often precede loud seasons of success. They are willing to wait, to struggle, to go unnoticed, because they know the price they pay today will buy them freedom tomorrow. That's why their days are filled with structure, with intentional repetition. For the remainder of your life, with commitment to the invisible work, they show up when no one's watching. They grind without applause. They practice when the results haven't shown yet. And in doing so, for the remainder of your life, they separate themselves because over time, those tiny, unsexy, consistent efforts compound into something the undisciplined can't match. Success is not something you stumble into. It's something you build slowly, brick by brick, while the world is too distracted to notice. In the end, success is not owned, it is rented. And rent is due every damn day. The people who understand that life differently. They don't seek comfort, they seek growth. They don't run from effort, they embrace it. They know that pleasure is temporary, but mastery is permanent. And so they push forward, delay the reward, and do what needs to be done for the remainder of life because they're not living for the moment. They're building a legacy. Time is the most valuable currency you will ever have. Unlike money, you can't earn more of it. Once it's spent, it's gone forever. That's why the 1% treat their time like sacred ground. They don't give it away freely, and they certainly don't waste it on activities that have no return. Every hour of their day has a purpose, and every block of their calendar reflects their priorities. If something matters to them, it gets scheduled. If it's not on their calendar, it doesn't exist. That's not rigidity, it's responsibility. Most people are reckless with time, even if they don't realize it. They say yes to things that don't align with their goals. They scroll for hours without meaning to. They respond to everything instantly, as if being constantly available is a virtue. But being busy is not the same as being effective. The 1% know that saying yes to everything is the fastest way to fail at the things that truly matter. They make hard choices, and they protect their time with boundaries that others may not understand, but are necessary for greatness. To the elite, time is a weapon. It's how they outlast, outwork, and outperform those who are more talented but less disciplined. They break their days into focus blocks, deep work, movement, rest, planning, and they stick to it. This structure doesn't limit them, it frees them. It gives them clarity, control, and momentum. It keeps them moving forward while the undisciplined are still figuring out where to start. Every minute they spend is measured against a question. Is this moving me closer to my vision or farther away? The truth is, without intention, time disappears. Days blur into weeks, weeks into months, and before long, people wonder why nothing has changed. But change requires structured. You must tell your time where to go instead of wondering where it went. The 1% do this daily. They don't wing their days, they design them. Their calendar is not just a list of appointments. It's a reflection of their standards, their discipline, and their level of seriousness about their future. In the end, you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your schedule. If your calendar doesn't reflect your dreams, your life never will. That's why the elite live by one unshakable rule: prioritize or perish. Either you control your time, or it will control you. Either you act with purpose, or you'll react to chaos. Time is the most honest mirror of your values, so look at it closely and ask yourself, what is your time really saying about you? Everything you build in life begins with a single point of origin, your mind. Before success ever shows up in your bank account, on a scoreboard, or in public recognition, it has to be born inside your thoughts. The most powerful achievements you'll ever create start with belief, not hope, not wishful thinking, but a deep, unshakable conviction that what you want is possible, and more importantly, that you are the one capable of making it happen. The 1% know this. They understand that external results are just reflections of internal decisions. Before they ever conquer the world, They conquer their mindset. Most people unknowingly sabotage their future by the stories they keep repeating to themselves. They say things like, I'm not that type of person, I've never been good at that, or that's just not who I am. These aren't facts. They're limitations disguised as truth. The mind will always look for evidence to support what it already believes, and if your beliefs are small, your actions will shrink to fit them. But the elite challenge those limits. They constantly examine their thoughts, uproot what no longer serves them, and reprogram their mindset to align with their goals. You become what you believe, not what you say you want. If you believe you're not worthy of success, no strategy will help. If you believe you're not capable, you'll find ways to underperform, self-sabotage, or quit early. But if you believe with absolute certainty that you are meant for more, your behavior changes. You start moving with boldness. You make decisions faster. You take risks. You invest. You stay consistent, not because it's easy, but because your mind is already living in the outcome. The world eventually catches up to that level of belief. That's why the 1% feed their minds relentlessly. They guard what goes in: books, conversations, thoughts, content, because they know the mind doesn't operate in isolation. It reflects whatever it's been exposed to. They surround themselves with possibility, with winners, with visionaries. They study people who've already done what they aim to do. They immerse themselves in environments that stretch their thinking, because they know mindset is not something you have. It's something you train, sharpen, and protect every day. At the end of the day, your life is a reflection of what you've tolerated in your thoughts. Your results are simply mirrors of your mindset. If you want to change your outcomes, you must first change your inner dialogue. The man who thinks he can and the man who thinks he can't are both right, not because of fate, but because belief shapes action. Action shapes results, and results shape reality. The 1% don't wait for belief to show up. They build it first. And that's why the world eventually bends in their direction.